I'm Michelle from the Sterling Tribune, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, the opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to episode 117 of Better Podcasting. This episode, we talk about all the ways that the Electro Voice RE320 is a way better microphone than the Audio-Technica BB40.
No, that's not happening. We're not doing that.
Why? You know it's true.
No.
Why not?
Just stop.
Let's do it.
Just stop. Hello and welcome to episode 117 of Better Podcasting. On this week's show, we talk about all of the ways that make self-hosting the number one choice of us here at Better Podcasting.
Whoa, no. Cut. We are not doing that.
Why? What do you want to do? We're planning on doing an idea, and now we're not going to do it.
Well, let's just go with my idea because we both know that I'm the better half of Better Podcasting.
Oh yeah, you want to play that game? You can just have fun doing it by yourself, SB. Just enjoy the show. Do it yourself.
No, wait, you're not quitting on me, are you? No, you're not. You know what? This is it. You're not quitting on me because I'm quitting on you. Bye.
Bye-bye, sissy boys. About time we got rid of those two pains in the butt. Hey, Emily, what do you say we do this show the right way?
Absolutely. We should change the name, don't you think? What's better than Better Podcasting?
I have it. Welcome to episode 1 of Better Podcasting with me, your egomaniacal, wrestling-centric, not quite Canadian, moose-hating podcaster Jason Bryant of Matt Talk Online.
And I am your high-priced executive podcast master, Emily Prokop, and we're here to talk about all those little things you might be missing from your podcast. Lauren, we need a new intro, but it's time to take it away.
Welcome to Better Podcasting, a show where we talk about podcast tips, tools, and best practices to help you succeed with your podcast. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we podcast purely out of the love and fun of it. Podcasting is our hobby, and we recognize that it's yours too. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com.
Hello and welcome again to episode 1 of Better Podcasting. I'm Jason Bryant, going to be joined by Emily Prokop here. And if you're a regular listener to this show, I'm sorry, we've got a new format. Steven and SP, peace, you're out. But if you are a regular listener, you may have heard them talk about this contest, and we're actually going to uphold the integrity of the contest, unlike those two morons who don't uphold the integrity of anything they say on this show.
I know. We believe the two of them are still planning on tying up the loose ends, or moose ends, if you will.
Moose ends, yes. Well played.
They're going to be giving the microphone away, hopefully. And we hope to have more information on next week's episode.
Yeah, so episode 2 of Better Podcasting. Again, we're going to have to change our Twitter handle and update the links to all you listeners. But otherwise, we're going to have to start a GoFundMe for the giveaway. To just give one away, we're going to have to start a Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and Indiegogo. You name it, we're going to have to do it.
Yeah, and I think to enter the contest, you had to pick your favorite Better Podcasting episode. And let's read one of the contest entries. This is from Liam Richardson. Hi, Stephen and SP. We can change that to say Emily and Jason.
Yeah, because you know, the best episode was us, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this one. My favorite episode of 2017 was the one where Stephen got fired. Imagine that.
Called it.
Can't remember what number it was. Doesn't matter. It's in the past. We might get rid of that feed altogether. I must admit you had me going there for a second, but quickly realized what was going on and was relieved it was a joke. What does that mean, Liam? Come on.
It's not a joke anymore.
It was interesting to see the different dynamic without both of you, as that is what makes the show tick, but it turned out pretty good. That's right.
Yeah, wait till you see our dynamic.
I know. Dynamic microphone, that is. Anyway.
Ooh, podcast puns. More where that came from.
Puns are coming. I was relieved, however, to see normal service resumed from the next episode. Keep up the good work, guys.
Fancy that Liam sends in his contest entry, and shockingly, it's from an episode where Steven got fired. I really can't explain that one any better because that's the way it's supposed to be. And if you've got an idea for feedback, you know it's going to come in because of this episode. It's going to be the greatest episode of Better Podcasting ever.
Yeah, we're not going to let it get to our heads, though. Absolutely not. Although we can always change the name to Best Podcasting.
I still like Better Podcasting because basically it just tells you what that show was and how we're going to make ours better because we are
definitely
the best at Better Podcasting.
But we do want to hear from you. So send your feedback to podcast@betterpodcasting.com. We'll change that later.
Yeah. It's a pain in the butt to change your email and anyway. I think this is the part of the show where Steven and SP would like to solicit for how you saved your podcast stories. But I don't know do we really want to carry on their mediocrity here? I mean, I do like to hear. You know what? Let's just flip the script on this. We want to hear how you saved your podcast stories, and then how you can tell us here at Better Podcasting how we can help you improve upon it. Versus Steven and SP just mocking you the entire time and recycling the same old. Okay, it's self-hosting, blah blah blah. So yes, send in those stories. We actually care. We're actually going to do our best for you.
We're going to put the heart in Better Podcasting. Better Podcasting.
Yes. All Steven and SP did was put the fart in it. We put the heart in it.
Yeah, you know what? But this episode, we saved their podcast. So this is our story, right?
Oh, and it will be the story behind our story of Better Podcasting. See what I did there?
I see that. I love it. You know what? Steven and SP touch on very broad subjects. Let's go down to the nitty gritty. Let's get into the dirty parts of podcasts that people might not notice or pay attention to when they first start out.
And realize that they are, yes, deep down and dirty, but they are still safe for work. Unless you don't mark your podcast explicit, and it is explicit, and you get booted out of iTunes. Did I say that word? More on that later.
Yeah.
Emily, so what do you have on cover art?
We are going to go over the specs, and it's kind of boring and there are numbers involved. But you know what happens if you don't have those specs in place? We heard from Libsyn the reason a show might not be approved, or it might even be taken down from Apple Podcasts, is because the artwork isn't up to spec. So let's talk about some of those specs right now. A lot of numbers at you, but you know what? This information is available and it's easy enough to get. So here it goes. We're going to talk about a minimum of 1400 by 1400 pixels, a maximum of 3000 by 3000 pixels.
Which is gigantic. Yes. Don't be thrown off when you say 3000 by 3000. First thing, Emily will tell you how to shrink those down for the big size, but the good clarity. But that's a daunting task. First time we went from 300 to 300 to 1400 by 1400, now to 3000. It's like our pets' heads are falling off. I mean, it can freak you out.
It's huge, especially if you have a picture of yourself and you see every single bit of your face on there, and oof, no. But you also want to keep it under 500 kilobits. That's really important. And I don't know. Apple Podcasts might have updated that on their site. That was one thing they were leaving out for a while, and that's something I got from Libsyn. Also use RGB color space, and it has to be a JPEG, JPG, or PNG file. Super, super important.
Also, and I've also found that JPEGs typically are smaller than PNGs. Most of the time, depends on how many layers that you've built it in Photoshop, but a PNG of the same size will typically be larger than a JPEG. Of course, I'm not a designer by trade. I just know how to make sure that you're getting the right tips here on Better Podcasting episode 1. And so file size is important, as is file size. That can be confusing to a new podcaster as well.
Yeah. This also goes for episode art. If you do art specific for every single episode and you add that to your ID3 tags, which Jason is going to talk about in a minute, Definitely make sure that that's the same specs as before, 1400 by 1400 minimum, 3000 by 3000 maximum, under 500 kilobits, RGB color space, JPG, JPEG, or PNG file.
Now, let's slow this down so that that Stephen and SP, who are undoubtedly going to listen to this and realize what has gone wrong, but just so we can dumb it down to them. So 1400, of course, that's pixel widths. I mean, sometimes if you're using Photoshop or a program like that, your settings or your units will be some people are in picas if they're in desktop publishing, or inches is the most common, but you will want to change that to pixels and even show rulers. Just simple things like showing the rulers in your layout space or your workspace can save you a lot of time using the guides by dragging something over and lining things up. So Emily, for the classy little podcast, may it rest in peace, what were the differences in setting up your show artwork from the classy little podcast to now the story behind? What was your learning curve?
So with that, I had to flatten an image. I didn't realize about the 500 kilobit, and I didn't get pinged, but I started listening to more podcasts about podcasting and realized my image for this is way too big. And I had to get in touch with the guy who did my artwork and say, hey, can you make it under 500 kilobits? And he said to me, actually, he's like, oh, well, my artwork is like 3000 kilobits and I've never had a problem. He had a problem a year later with it. So they're really picky about that. Yeah.
Because that RSS feed size, again, we don't want to get too off in the weeds away from our topics, but all those things play a factor with your RSS feed size. Now, with my network at matttalkonline.com, I have a master feed for the 23 different wrestling shows. Yes, 23 different shows about the sport of wrestling, and I don't mean professional wrestling. I do not mean the stuff with the ropes.
Sports entertainment.
Yes, not the sports center. You know a little bit about that industry, Emily, but weren't you the WWE Divas champ at one point?
Yeah. Whenever I told somebody I worked at WWE, they said, are you a wrestler? And I said, yep, clearly.
Yeah, just go with it. Just go with it. Yeah, she went hell in a cell with Jacqueline and Natalia and Beth Phoenix. Trust me, it was a sight to be seen on the WWE network. But as we talk, we just pulled an SP here. We just got totally off track. So as we were saying, is that the size of your RSS feed? I had we put out 444 episodes this year alone. So even with show art that was of moderate size, the RSS feed eventually got to the point we've got 1,000 shows within that feed. So ultimately it kind of threw up on itself. And one of our listeners is like, hey, I haven't seen any new shows. And I went and checked all the feeds, which is another little tip. Always subscribe to your own show. Usually I would recommend doing it on some of the free apps. I like an Overcast, even though I think that's a premium paid app, or the podcast app, or find usually another app. And if you've got another Android device, or if you're an Apple guy, for example, it's always good to test it in another atmosphere to see where your RSS feeds are breaking. Well, my RSS feed broke because the file sizes were just too big, and a lot of that had to do with the images. So I resized my images and I shrunk the RSS feed. So that is, of course, another topic that SP and Stephen have glossed over here on 100 previous episodes of Better Podcasting, which is why Emily and myself here are here for episode 1 to treat you right. So moving on, the show artwork is only one angle of the ID3 tag. So what is an ID3 tag anyway? It's not really that important that you know the definition. Just know that it is the information that is actually latched onto your file. So when you upload it to Libsyn, or if you self-host it, or if you go to Blueberry or Spreaker, that's the information that's there. Aha, I said Spreaker. There is a little note. I like to use ID3 Editor because I work in a Mac atmosphere, and I know there are other programs for the PC side of things. I think maybe Stephen and SP went over that, but who the heck listens to them anyway?
I know.
So you can also go through iTunes and set this up by hitting the info. And on a Mac, it's like Command I. You pull it in, you import it, and then you can retype it and simply save it there. Now, I like to write my show notes in kind of an HTML format. I'd used a plain text editor, and then I just paste in the two paragraphs. I've got it all coded with the line breaks and everything, and I throw it into ID3 Editor, into the lyrics and to the information section. If I'd have thought this out a little bit better for better podcasting, I would have a screenshot for you. But since this is our first time through, and we're still already way more prepared than Stephen and SP have ever been, you'll just have to take my word for it. But you can throw that stuff in there, save it, and then you upload it to Libsyn, or if you import through Blueberry, all those ID3 tags, you can actually pull them in. Libsyn has a nice little checkbox that says import your ID3 tags into your show notes section, and then boom, it's right there. You just might have to look to see if a double line dash has changed to a question mark. Little things you just got to have a little discriminating eye for. But if you're using Spreaker, which I do like Spreaker, they don't actually pull in your ID3 tag, so you'll have to do that manually within their section, and they can't at this time use any code. So pick your poison, or it's to each his own. But ID3 tags very important because it's what populates your show, and apparently it helps you with search. But I'm no expert on that.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what it helps with? When people download your podcast into, say, a Zune, because people do that, and it pops up perfectly. The title, the artwork, you don't have to worry about it, but who does that?
I'm sorry. Did you say Zune?
Yeah, one of those
There is no Jason, only Zune.
Exactly.
That was a reach. So, to get deep in the woods, are ID3 tags something that most podcasters should be aware of? Yes. It's something. Is it the most important thing of your podcast? No. But it is something that you should probably get in the habit of adding to your workflow. And again, to do that is I typically just have my files in a text editor. I use Text Wrangler for a Mac, which is just a plain text editor. You can use it for editing code or just simply writing, and you want a plain text editor. It's great for stripping out stuff. So if you write your show notes in Microsoft Word, Rob Walsh from Libsyn recommends you never, ever paste from Word into Libsyn, for example. Well, you can paste that into a plain text editor, take out all the formatting, and paste it back into Libsyn if you're going to do your ID3 tags that way, which is another way you can do it through, like with Blueberry, you can upload through WordPress and just have it pull in from your WordPress post. Or if you just say, I've got the file, I'm going to throw it up to Libsyn, you enter your show notes, you click the box at the bottom and says save ID3 tags to the file. That's another way to do it. Libsyn makes it really, really easy. That's also why 20 of my 23 shows are sitting over there. But those are really the two easy ways. 2.5 easy ways to add ID3 tags to your episode.
That's actually what I do is I upload it to Libsyn and check that little box because I don't have time to put it in. Nope. I just want to put my episode up there and publish.
I do it both ways because I actually do a semi-daily show, and I say semi-daily because it's, it depends on what I'm doing. And I write this out, I script it, and I read it, kind of genuinely, unlike SP and Steven, who just simply go, making sure you know your art sizes. Heard from Libsyn the reason a show won't be approved or taken down in Apple. Yeah, you don't want to hear that. So I read it genuine. I read it as I would being a sports broadcaster. And then rather than plug that into the ID, I mean, they're 4 or 5 minute, up to 10-minute episodes that are just rashing out scores from the night before. So I'm just like, okay, recorded, upload it, paste in the script, Word, text editor, back to Libsyn to upload, and I upload it through there. So sometimes it's, just a simple way. And that's also a really good way to do your individual episode artwork too, is just through Libsyn.
Yeah, the other thing I'll do is I will make my notes in Google Docs, and you're not supposed to copy and paste directly from Google Docs. But what I will do is press, Control-Shift-V, and that will paste it without formatting. So it doesn't bring over any of that code. It just brings over the text.
Yes, I also believe in some Microsoft applications. It's like Paste Special, and then you can, Anyway, who uses Microsoft? I don't use Microsoft, but anyway,
we're getting way too into the dirt for this.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. That's what SP and Steven used to do. We want to just make sure that you get everything you need, not talk about moose hunting or it's weasels. I think in Canada they have weasel stomping day too.
Yeah, that sounds about right. What else do you want to say about ID3 tags?
Not much else, because I think that it's a very basic thing to do. It's just once you get into a rhythm, and that's the key. Like anything with podcasting, there's a process to it. You don't want to, you get into your system, you get into the rhythm. So when I record, I export, I use Adobe Audition to export. I've got it saved in my MP3. Then I open ID3 editor, I pull it in. I just simply copy and paste, episode title, all that stuff will pull right in. So, that's just the thing. That's the last thing I do before I upload it is make sure the ID3 tags get in there when I do it that way for a longer show where I need better show notes. So that is kind of putting the cherry on top of my ID3 tag discussion.
In the chat room, Bangs Naughty Bits mentions that Auphonic will let you enter tags as well. So if you're using Auphonic to help edit or, well, not edit, but EQ, make your podcast sound good, Auphonic will also put in tags. So there's another way to do it. So add that to the list.
Can we hire Bangs Naughty Bits? Because I understand that SP and Steven have totally screwed them over the years. So, the great Redditor of podcasting is getting the shaft here. That'll never happen on Better Podcasting, Bangs. You know that.
Bangs Naughty Bits, come on in. Come join us. Going back to the artwork in your MP3 ID3 tags, is there ways to resize your images? It's the same thing, the same specs for your cover art, for your episode art that you throw into your ID3 tags. And if you want to resize your image and you don't have something like a vector, like Bangs Naughty Bits was talking about, where it's easily resized, you can go to resizeimage.net or tinyjpg.com and it'll resize it. You can get it under 500 kilobits and you'll be all set.
And I just want to add one more thing about Spreaker, just because I did mention this in passing, is again, I've talked to Rob Greenlee a couple times, like, hey, I think they're working on adding the HTML component. It isn't there yet. So I just simply look at your code if you've got it in there, and then look at it in the text view, or then you can look at the visual. You copy that and then go back into the text editor, kill out the coding, and then you can paste it into Spreaker because it does handle line breaks pretty well. But if you're looking to upload all your stuff into Spreaker, for example, with that, you might be SOL, and I do not mean standards of learning. It's just a minor inconvenience is all it is. Yeah. SOL might be a little overstating it. SP and Steven, they're SOL because they're not getting their show back.
No. Nope. Mm-mm.
I think social media is also one that we spend a lot of time on, almost too much time. And I've made several social media mistakes that I would make sure, SP and Steven just do that constantly. But I want to say, if you're going to have a brand Twitter account, and this is where I screwed up because I have matttalkonline.com and I have @matttalkonline. Well, just because you have a Twitter presence or Instagram presence or Facebook presence does not mean people will magically click through, especially now with Facebook, the way it's all screwed up. I mean, I think my mom will post something, I won't see it for a week and a half. And, my mom's of that age where she's like, well, I posted it on Facebook. Mom, I've got 4,977 friends here. I can't see your post every single time. That is not a humble brag. It's just I constantly have to, add and remove people from my friends list. It's kind of annoying. But just because I post something on my personal Facebook page or on the Matt Talk Online Facebook page, which has 1,200 likes, it doesn't mean it's going to get 1,200 listens. So that's one thing that people need to be very, very conscious about with their social media usage. The Matt Talk Online Twitter account maybe has 700 followers. Why? I'm not over there. It's not engaging. Don't have a Twitter account if you're not going to engage. My personal presence actually has the blue check mark at Jason M. Bryant. I have 10,000 plus followers for, my wrestling presence. And there's some people that, that aren't wrestling that are friends that follow. But for the most part, that's where I'm posting my content. That's where people know that my name is actually bigger than my brand in that respect, because I set it on my own and I started one. So don't sit there. And if you don't have brand recognition and you have name recognition, stick with your name recognition, unless, of course, you want to go out and have your alter ego and your different life and live places. You can just sit there and just set things up and say, okay, if you want to start fresh, but understand you have to engage with that account. So Emily, you have your personal account and you have the Story Behind account. The Story Behind, for example, is a bigger product or brand for your listeners than your personal padlocked Twitter account.
Yeah. My personal one is one I've had since Twitter came out. So I don't think my listeners would want to go back and see that, man, I really want a grilled cheese sandwich back in 2011. I don't think they care about that. That has nothing to do with my show. I mean, it's history, but it's not, history like the story behind. So I have that padlock. That's also where my family checks to see stuff. The same on my Facebook. I have my personal profile is not, I don't have everything out for the world to see. So if you want to keep your private life private, go ahead, unless you want to turn that into a brand. If you want to turn yourself into a brand, like I'm doing a little bit for my business, but I'm still keeping a lot of stuff private. A lot of stuff is just family only on Facebook. And speaking of Facebook, know the difference between a Facebook page and a Facebook group. Do you need a page for your podcast? It's a good idea. It's kind of like a storefront. It's for people to check it out if they're interested in it. I think I have more likes on my page than I have people in my Facebook group. And a group is more for community type setting. So if you want to talk to your listeners, if you have a subject that they would be interested in and they want to talk amongst themselves, if you think they would get along, open up a group. I'm actually a part of a few private Facebook groups for shows that I love. One is called Is This Adulting? And it's all about mental health. And of course, that group is private, so none of our friends or our family can see what we're posting in that group. And it's great because it's a judgment-free zone.
That's one thing that's also interesting about Facebook groups is not every community reacts the same way. I know that I have a group for my Matt Talk Online patrons, for example, and they're not very vocal. I mean, I ask questions in there. I'll throw out, hey, here's the list of guests I've got coming up. And sometimes I'll get questions depending on who the guest is. So again, social media doesn't necessarily solve your problem on how you're going to get people to listen. Basically, it takes good old-fashioned elbow grease. And in this case, by elbow grease, I mean like not actual grease, because unlike that time SP put grease on his Roland R05 and had to upgrade to the Zoom H5, it was just it was messy for everybody involved.
Yeah. You know what? But like as Jason said, the interaction is really important. And now with the new Facebook algorithm, that's what Facebook is looking for. You're probably not seeing the page posts from your mechanic that you liked 5 years ago.
Why not? I like Herb. Herb did good work. Then he started a podcast and he got on Facebook and nobody listened to it and he got mad at me.
Oh, of course. Well, was it a page? That's probably why. Yeah.
I think it was a unlisted private closed group that he lost the password to. So Herb and I aren't friends anymore because I told him to start podcasting and he stopped fixing my car.
Oh, yeah.
Tragic.
He probably made your radio play all the time so that you couldn't even listen to podcasts anymore.
Well, that was the problem when I took it in. I went to turn on the radio and gas came out the radiator. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, so one thing that Facebook also decided that they don't like are posts that are baiting for engagement, because that's what you want. You want engagement. You want people to like your post, love your post, but you probably don't see these posts anymore. And you saw them earlier, maybe a few months ago, of saying, like this post if you like cats, like this, love this post if you like dogs, press the LOL face if you like rabbits. Things like that, Facebook doesn't like anymore. Don't try it with your podcast. You're going to get demoted. And Facebook does love when you use their tools and you keep people on their site. So, really, tools? Really?
There's that word again. Why does that word? You know what? That's the thing. That was the theme for the other show. The
Tools?
old show.
Yeah. Oh, right.
They were the Better Podcasting talked about those two being tools all the time. But here on Better Podcasting, we only laugh at tools in such a way that sounds like it might be innuendo.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're much more adult than those
We
two.
are. Anyway, so use the tools that Facebook and your social media provider wants you to use. Use the lives. Go live in your group. Talk to your listeners. Tell them what your show is going to be that week. I started doing that in my group and I get engagement and I get people excited for the show. You could preview your new episodes. You can let them know what's going on with the show. That's what I did during my hiatus. I would go live in my group and say, hey guys, still on hiatus. Here's what's going on, but here's also what I've planned. So Facebook, their tools, even Instagram stories. If you're on Instagram with your show, if your audience is on Snapchat and you're there, use it. Just go where your audience is and use those tools, and those social media platforms will love you.
I tell you what, this thing right here, the Snap Face, the Insta Chat, I'm getting to the point where I still don't get to Snapchat, but hey, it is for you. I know Instagram, it's and that's the one thing too with the mingling of the accounts. Like if you follow me on my personal Twitter, I tweet pictures of my kids too, so there is an intermingling. People will actually ask me at tournaments and events like, "Oh, how's Lucy and Ruby doing?" So there is a little bit of a fraternization between my personal life and my work life, which essentially is I work in an industry that I deeply care about and I love. So the lines blur a little bit there versus like if you're an HR professional and then you come home and do a comic book podcast, you're not really going to be talking about comic books a lot when you're working in human resources or something. So you keep, sometimes it's okay to blur those lines. Although I kind of keep a lot of the Matt Talk stuff off of my personal Instagram. That's more just like pictures of M&Ms from Super Bowl parties and my daughter's dancing.
Yeah, definitely. You think we're ready for the Better Podcasting download?
I think we are. For time. It is time. It is time. Morris Day and the time.
Welcome to this week's Better Podcasting Download.
Oh, yeah. That sounded good. We just got to get better podcasting in there.
And we got to get rid of Steven and SP voices on anything here. This is just, it's kind of depressing when you think about, we take over a show and, obviously we've already stepped up the game. I can guarantee you this is going to be number one on iTunes.
No, that's what we're going to talk about.
Did I just set that up for you perfectly?
You so did. High five right here. Come on.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the email that podcasters should have gotten about a week ago. It came out, I believe, January 30th, 31st, maybe.
Hey, my wife's birthday. Yay. That's why I didn't see it. Because I was a lazy podcaster. Don't be a lazy podcaster. Read your email, especially on your wife's birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it came from none other than Apple Podcasts themselves. And it began with, Dear Podcast Provider, to improve your experience with Apple Podcasts, we have the following announcements, tips, and reminders. And they had a bulleted list of 4 points: podcast analytics beta. Analytics, that means stats, guys. Everybody loves stats, apparently. Specification update. Easier podcast submission for hosting partners, and what we're going to talk about today, the Apple Podcast badges.
And so I can also give them a little bit of an insight. It could also be called easier podcast submission for hosting partners, much like we are better podcasting.
Right. Yes.
I don't feel like you're in love with this theme so far, Emily. I don't know. We just got to power through it. We're going to power through it. We got to power through it. Okay. So check your email. If you didn't get this, we're here to tell you one of the most important parts. And this is that you should be implementing the wording Apple Podcasts instead of iTunes. Dun, dun, dun.
No, that means anything on your website, your social media profiles. If you have something that says subscribe in iTunes, you're going to want to change that to Apple Podcast, your banners, your icons. And in that email, they give you a link to download new banners that say subscribe in Apple Podcasts. And you should be changing anything that says iTunes, to Apple Podcasts. How about you, Jason? Have you changed stuff yet?
Yeah. Plus, you'll also be fined $1 million. No, actually, that I think is in the terms of service. When you click OK or I agree in iTunes, it does say that they can take your firstborn child, charge you $1 million, and ship you to Cambodia. Now, I haven't fully changed my graphics over to Apple Podcasts, but I have started to use the terminology in my social media posts and my show notes. If there's something relevant that I would like Apple Podcasts shot in the dark that they retweet, because sometimes they'll retweet something that's like, what the heck kind of show is that? You'll at Apple Podcasts, or I'll put their listen. Here's my listen link. Here's my subscribe link. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. So I've taken care of all that in my show notes. That was a gradual process. And when you got 23 shows to manage, sometimes you've got to tell people, hey, Apple Podcasts, even if they're not even on my network. There were some buddies of mine that do a show out of Ohio. Shockingly, that I'm not the only one that does wrestling podcasts, but there's a couple guys out of Ohio that said iTunes, and But I said, hey, you want to probably start saying Apple Podcast now. It's kind of a thing. And then they actually mentioned it's like, we're on Apple Podcast because that's apparently what they want to be called now. So yes, even though it's the buddy system, even though they may not have read the email because they may have been out to dinner with their wives on January 31st on their birthdays. At least hopefully they weren't out to dinner with my wife on her birthday. That would be another story entirely. But you get that terminology in, and sometimes you just have to go with it because iTunes, it's a hard habit to break.
Yeah.
Because it's been iTunes since like 2003, 2004. Since I first started working on a Mac in college at my campus newspaper, like, the heck is this blue oblong thing? What is this? The turquoise Macs that was just like, yeah. So it's been iTunes ever since. I mean, it's still the program. I mean, what am I mousing over my computer? It says iTunes on your computer. And it's kind of confusing there, but it's going to take a while, but I started with, again, the templated show notes from the ID3 tags earlier. Like how I'm bringing this all together. And it's like ahref, here's your link. And it says Apple Podcasts, and it was simply just changing it. Now, I haven't changed out the graphics on the front page because I actually use Daniel J. Lewis's subscribe and follow plugin, which has come highly recommended. I've been using it for years, but the graphic still says iTunes, and I don't want to take that down right now because I don't want to have to replace the other like 15 different graphics that you've got in that little square. Like, I don't want to have to create a Spotify graphic, a iHeartRadio graphic, a Spreaker graphic. No, I'm not using SoundCloud. So yeah, I'm not even bothering a SoundCloud graphic.
Oh, that's another no.
Yeah, by the way, we were going to ban SoundCloud. No, I'm just kidding. Some people still actually have a use for SoundCloud, and more power to you. Just beware. But again, you want to take the word iTunes out of your rotation. So I saith unto you, Apple Podcast, or you will be thrown into the pit of misery. Dilly dilly, just like Stephen and SPR.
Jason says it, so it must be true.
Dilly dilly.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I'm so far behind the cool factor on the whole dilly dilly thing. That is actually my mic drop homage to Stephen and SP because they're so far out of touch. They're not even going to know what dilly dilly means until like next year when the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl.
Oh, all right. Are we ready to get to some better Podback?
I think we are.
Okay.
One of the few things that SP and Steven do well is have everyone else do their work for them. I mean, this show is supposed to be us helping you how to do things and telling you, the listener, how to do it right. Right, Emily?
Yeah, it's as if the listener doesn't have enough on their plate. And even more so when we get advertising on the show, right? And we start asking them to buy mattresses so that they sleep better and make better podcasts, right? We're going to tie that in.
Yeah, and also make better food and make better food from another company too. And then you go back and forth and you're just making food and sleeping on mattresses.
And new underwear. That's very important to podcasting.
Yes, we can't forget about MeUndies. I feel like a Scotsman. You can't forget about MeUndies.
Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly, the pit of podcasting misery. So rather than have the listeners sit back and tell us how we should set up the show, we're going to grab the bull by the horns and throw a few things out from previous Better Podbacks to officially call them Better Podbacks. First segment, again, we like to call, Emily, say it with me, Better Podback.
Got
dilly,
it. Dilly dilly.
This is where we need to actually introduce some dilly dilly music because I sat there for a hold. Wait a minute, who's producing the show anyway? Now, a couple episodes back, this was actually the one thing I did glean from the last library, the 100 and whatever episodes it is of the old show that you knew as Better Podcasting, was purchase mistakes. And as I look over, okay, where my computer station, this is my workspace. I've got monitor, my mixer's over here. I got my sticker wall with like, hey, look, there's the story behind right there.
Yay!
Yep, I got Grumpy Old Geeks, another podcast sticker over here. So that's my sticker wall. But over across on top of my bookcase sits a beautiful, shiny, majestic Shure Classic 55. And if you don't know what that microphone is, just go into Apple Podcasts and look at about half of the show artwork. That is the microphone that most of the shows are actually using. So it's that old-timey, big head kind of microphone.
Oh, it's the one behind me.
Yeah, kind of. I got one over there. That actually looks like it's being used. See, mine is a $180 paperweight, and that is the reason you got to be careful with what you buy. I'm a PA announcer too. I announce a lot of wrestling tournaments around the world, and I always thought it would be cool to have that microphone, to bring that I don't know, that Zoot Suit Riot, what was that? Squirrel Nut Zippers, was that the band with the big swing and
the big band.
Yeah, the big band thing that was like in the late 90s with that microphone and the Harvey Danger throwbacks or what, I don't even know. But just that old-timey Elvis microphone to be at a tournament and be like, man, Jason Bryant's got it down. He brought his own microphone. Well, I brought that microphone to an event and it did not work. It was so hot, you could hear the clicks every time you flip the little switch. So that was one thing that was really disappointing. Is it looks cool. I think it does sound cool on the right system, but it's not a podcasting microphone. It is more ornamental. It will work, but it's got to have the right environment, just like anything you buy. So that was a want, not a need, and that is one thing that my wife has been very good about with me in terms of I don't really have the gear acquisition syndrome like a lot of podcasters get sometimes because they just want to get gear. And it's one thing that the $180 paperweight is what that one is. Yeah. Microphones is also one where you spend a lot of money too. And when I was doing some remote stuff that wasn't exactly podcasting related, and if you're in the industry that you have, your husband's got some band stuff back there. So you've got musical equipment, and some of those involves microphones and mixers. Guess what? That's going to enter into your collection of gear. Hey, I can use that for podcasting. Oh, hey, I can use that for podcasting. Not recommended to use Rock Band microphone, right, Emily?
Okay. First few episodes, we used Rock Band mics. Sounded awful, but I was still very proud of those episodes that I can never listen to again.
So my tip here is we bought some wireless microphones to do some filming, and they were cheap. And when I say cheap, they were a brand you didn't really realize. It's like, oh wow, this one's only $50. There's a reason it's $50 when most of your good high-end microphones are 5, 6, 7 times that at your Guitar Center or your local Fry's or wherever you get, wherever fine electronics are sold. You get what you pay for in a lot of ways, unless, if something's on sale, that's one thing. The ATR 2100 or the AT 2005 drop below $50 or $60 on Amazon, you can best bet I'm buying 2 or 3 of them at a time because they're just good to have. So just be careful with the gear acquisition syndrome. And if you really, really don't need it, I know there's been a couple times where I've sat there and I've had that button ready to press purchase on a $600 mixer on Amazon. And I'm like, do I really need it? No. Just think. It's like think before you post. It's like think before you click. Don't even think about one-click ordering on Amazon when you're in this thing of like looking for equipment. That's a bad idea. It's a bad idea. So
put it on your wish list, sleep on it, realize that buying a new microphone, even a $400 microphone, isn't going to grow your audience.
Yeah. So Emily, what's your best purchase mistake as it relates to podcasting?
I'm always pretty good about putting things on the wish list and not actually going through with it when I finally get my paycheck. But the big thing I almost bought a Mac because I work on a PC and all my podcasting friends had Macs. And I thought, well, I need a Mac. All of my friends have Macs, but my PC works perfectly fine for podcasting. It works great for editing. And the only reason I'm now getting a new computer is because my husband and I share this computer. So he kind of wants it back at some point. But I am going with another PC. I'm going with a Dell that actually Steven and SP helped me pick out. So I don't know. Maybe I should toss that out of my Amazon cart. But if you want to go back to Better Podcast,
trust me, you don't want to listen to them. You want to be on the if this were a sci-fi podcast, use the Force. You don't want to go to the dark side, or you don't want to stay on the dark side.
I want to be the cool kid.
No, I'm not a Mac snob, by the way. I actually I actually used PCs for quite a while. I just find for my industry that the Mac works better for me, and I've had great success. I've only bought 2 computers in 10 years. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But hey, I've been exploring the idea of getting a PC for certain PA announcing software that I can only get on a Windows operating system. So I may be going back to the dark side soon, but I won't use it for podcasting.
No.
I just won't do it. I just won't do it.
But if you are looking for a PC, there is that episode 117 of Better Pod. Just one better of Better Podcasting, where Stephen and SP talk about podcasting PC hardware. And there are a ton of good tips in there to help you if you're also looking to upgrade your computer or to get a new one.
You mean I have to go back and listen to an episode of Better Podcasting outside of the one where you and I were co-hosts?
Well, they better hurry up and listen to that, because we're kicking that one out of Apple Podcasts as soon as we have control of the feed.
Yeah. You're going to go find those shows on iTunes.
Yeah, that's right.
But I am Jason Bryant. You can find me at Jason M. Bryant on Twitter. I'm also the same thing on Instagram. If you want to see pictures of my cute little daughters, Lucy and Ruby, that is actually Lucy London, Ruby Rio. Yes, they are named with 4 letters ending in Y. My wife's name is 4 letters ending in Y. And yes, their middle names are Olympic cities because they were born in Olympic years. And yours truly worked those specific Olympic games with some type of professional conduct. I wasn't just there to watch and say, hey, I went to London, I'm naming my daughter London. No, it was it's a very special thing. So if you want to get a hold of me and talk wrestling, you want to talk about some podcast nerdery stuff, you want to talk about how great I am as a host and how great Emily is as a host, because I can talk to her too, it's at Jason M. Bryant on Twitter and MattTalkOnline.com. If you want to take a look at some other things that I've done, I've recently gone under a site redesign. I'm now using the Divi theme through Elegant Themes as to present 20 different network shows on my page. So MattTalkOnline.com, easy to find. Love talking podcasting, love talking wrestling, and I love talking about everything except for Steven and SP.
That's very true. If you want to contact me, you can go to my Twitter profile, which is at StoryBehindPod. I'm also on Instagram as StoryBehindPod. I'm also on Instagram if you want to follow my personal Instagram at Emily Peck Prokop. And you can
gotta drop the maiden name in there, right?
I do. It's still mine. Still mine.
Ooh, that sounds like another topic for a future episode of Better Podcasting for women. When you've branded yourself and the painfulness that comes with a name change, all the paperwork. Let's table that.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. I'll write it down. Write it down right now.
Down. Trust me, I hear about it every day. I hear about it every day. My wife works in HR, and yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's bad. You know what? And I've been divorced too, so I've had to change my name 3 times now. And my second husband, I was like, I'm not going to change my name. And he was like, well, you changed it for your first husband. So, come on. Anyway, so you can come to my website and check out my podcast at thestorybehindpodcast.com. And if you want to reach this show, we're going to get new email, new everything. You can find us at podcast@betterpodcasting.com. And you can always check us out at betterpodcasting.com. Come visit us live at geeks.live every week on Wednesdays, usually 8 o'clock. We were 8 o'clock Eastern. We were late this week because, I don't know, their little fight over there. You can tweet at us at BetterPod and find us at facebook.com/ Oh, I wrote that wrong. Whatever, it's changing. Jason, have you been anywhere else aside from this lovely show and your other shows?
Yeah, I did 8 podcast episodes last week from Super Bowl 52.
Oh.
Yeah. So this wrestling podcaster actually got media credentials, or actually day passes. I think I might have one behind me. Actually, oh, yay. If you're listening and you're not watching, that's bad podcasting. But yeah, I got one of these. I actually got 3 of these. Your day passes actually has your name. It's not like just a paper pass. You actually have to register and get one of these. So I didn't get full-blown media credentials for Super Bowl 52, but I did get day passes for 3 days. So I was at the Mall of America, which was the media hub, the media center, and I was interviewing NFL players and coaches that had wrestling backgrounds. I had the idea to do this last year while watching Super Bowl 51. I'm like, they mentioned a wrestler, or the center for the Atlanta Falcons, Alex Mack, and it said state wrestling runner-up from California. I was like, wait a minute. the Super Bowl's here next year. And I live 30 minutes from the Mall of America. So I went through the whole process. Took me a couple months to get media credentials and get registered with NFL Communications. And I went down there and interviewed probably 20 players, various teams, had some fun, had some teams from the Super Bowl, the Eagles and the Patriots, picking who was going to win the dual meet between Penn State and Ohio State on that Saturday. So I had some fun with it. We had an interview with a guy from my alma mater, Old Dominion, who was actually, I didn't know he was actually a wrestler until I started the interview. I was like, you got a wrestling background? He said, yeah, I wrestled growing up. I'm like, oh, this is just perfect. So it was really cool to get down there opening night and, see Michael Irvin in his crazy suit. Tony Dungy was walking around. So many cool things about Media Week at Super Bowl 52. So Radio Row did an interview from Radio Row at the Mall of America, and I heard podcasting terms left and right out there. So yes, even the big time media, they're not self-hosting, but I did hear the word Libsyn. I did hear
Nice.
Art19, and I did actually hear somebody on Radio Row quote, I am so sick of SoundCloud.
Yes, that is a success.
So that was my appearance, was spending a week away from my family, 30 minutes away, and doing 8 different podcast episodes from Media Week at Super Bowl 52. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Even though I don't cover the NFL, I don't care who wins. Go Bucks.
So I was on a podcast, actually, aside from my own, which finally came back from hiatus, but I was on another podcast called Playlist. And that's one that talks about people's favorite songs, and they pick a different genre every week. And it's usually a round table of other podcasters who come on and talk about theirs. And the episode I was on was Anthems for a 17-year-old Girl from the 90s. So these were Lilith Fair music. I had my flannel shirt on, my hair was scrunched, and my Alanis was cranked. So that's where I was this week.
My favorite female angsty band from the 90s, L7. Without question. I saw them like accidentally open up for somebody. I'm like, wow. And pardon my language, ladies, but I was like, man, these chicks rock. I don't, some people are very offensive if I say chicks. If anybody says chicks, find a safe space. But the L7 plus there's Pretend We're Dead is like their one major single, and it was on like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and there's like dun-it, 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 and it was on Beavis and Butthead too. So I'll always remember that. L7 was like my favorite. Like, although Kitty was, remember them? Kitty, like they were like teenage girls that were rockers, like death metal, like Kittie. They were another one to check out. They weren't quite in your Alanis Lilith Fair range, but that's basically. I used to live on 90s on 9 and Lithium and all that stuff on XM when I used to listen to XM, because I don't listen to XM anymore because I listen to way too many podcasts.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what's out. I have no idea what's out because I listen to way too many podcasts, including this one. I will listen to it probably 2 or 3 times now that it's you and me. Okay,
yeah, especially now question. My app is Overcast. How many unlistened to podcasts do you have right now? Do you have the badges on?
I don't, because it would just be too many.
It's a sign of your addiction. I'm at 104 unlistened to podcasts right now.
I wouldn't even know how to check that. I still use the actual Apple Podcast app on my iPhone. Everyone switched over. I stayed true. So anyone who's looking at stats in their Podcast Connect account to get their Apple stats.
I think you search iTunes to find it.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Yeah.
That's a slap on the wrist.
All right. Should we head out?
Should we put a bow on this? Should we mic drop our $180 Shure Classic 55 and call it a successful, the best episode that's ever been on this feed ever? I mean, because you had the best episode with you and me, it was a tie, and now
I know
this is clearly the best episode because it is both you and me, and then from here on out we can only get A+. It's
exactly.
It's not even a question.
We set the bar so high, it's ridiculous. All right, so let's see. How does Steven end it? All right, and that will do it. We hope you enjoyed the show tonight. And if you have something that you'd like us to talk about on a future episode, you can always find us at www.betterpodcasting.com. Tweet us at BetterPod. Find us at facebook.com/betterpodcasting. See ya!
Thank you for listening to another episode of Better Podcasting. We want to hear from you. You can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com. If you like the show, please consider giving us a 5-star review in iTunes. We encourage you to check out all of the other geeky podcasts available at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. This has been a Gonna Geek production. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.